Hello and welcome to this Wheeler Centre program called 100 Seconds Till Midnight. Da-da-da-dum. This program, in this program, we will use science, creativity, curiosity, conversation and imagination to respond to a fictional crisis scenario. My name is Bernard Caleo. I'm the host person, and I want to acknowledge that today's conversation takes place on unceded sovereign land. This is Aboriginal country. It always has been, and it always will be. I pay respects to elders, past and present, and to elders of all communities that this conversation reaches. This place, Melbourne, Naarm, was spoken first in the Bunwarang and Woiwarang languages. Warang, tongue, Warang. And these tongues, these Aboriginal languages first spoke and imagined and designed and worked with this country. And it's particularly important with our conversation today because it is about imagining how we will continue to live on country. So, a bit more of an intro. This is session 1 of 100 Seconds Till Midnight, and it's a 3-session program from the Wheeler Centre. In this program, you bring your imagination, your scientific thinking, your creativity, your writing and drawing abilities to respond to this fictional crisis scenario. In this session, Kaya, Tillie and I, Bernard, will set up the scenario. In the next session, one of us, Bernard, Tillie or Kaya, will come to your school and work with you to imagine, design, draw, dream, collaborate on responses to this fictional crisis. And in session 3, the final session, a round table back here at the Wheeler Centre, you'll show and tell each other your designs and ideas and drawings that you came up with, your responses to the crisis, your ways forward. So, it's just another day of saving the world. Business as usual, right? Okay, so I thought we would introduce ourselves first so you knew who you were working with. So my name's Bernard Caleo. I read comic books and I study comic books. I'm doing a PhD about comics, Australian comics at the moment. I make comic books. So yes, I'm quite interested in comic books. I think that they are a subtle and a complex way of capturing the world and imagining other worlds. And yeah, sometimes the animals speak and sometimes the people fly, and that's good too. In my spare time, not comic book time, I work at a bookshop here in Melbourne called Readings and sell people books there, and of course try to sell them comic books. Oh, yeah, that's a nice book. It's got a lot of words in it, though. Why don't you come over here? Look at these graphic novels. Don't they look great? Look, flip. So I do a bit of that. But before I worked at Readings, I worked at Melbourne Museum for a long time, like 15 years. And I just realised, just like yesterday, that when I worked there, I was employed as the clown. At the museum. I just realised this the other day, but because basically I was the guy who would dress up in a blue costume, this is true, blue costume, and just sort of show people stuff. Now, some of it was factual stuff, like there are hip bones in a blue whale. So this character I had, this blue guy, would show people the hips and say, look, if there's hips in a blue whale, it must have once lived on land because you need hips for legs, and legs are usually used to get around on. So yeah, 50 million years ago, whales, land-dwelling wolf creatures. Also, I get people facts like, the real name of the giant squid, Barry. No, the real name of a giant squid. The scientific name is Architeuthis sanctipauli. So I gave people facts. But also, this character I played, or person, I mummified a body. I got sent to Mars. I got shrunk down to about the size of a Lego minifig so that I could interact with really big bugs. So I don't know if you know this, but a praying mantis's head can pivot 180 degrees. That is freaky if you're the size of a Lego minifigure, which I was at the time. So I'm saying all this really to illustrate that, to show that when I was working at the museum, I really thought, oh man, these scientists, these historians, they're going to kick me out of the building. But we got on like a house on fire. And they are people whose imaginations are wild and love collaborating. And me as a maker of weird stuff, you know, why can't we turn off the gravity today? That sort of thing. That was a really good conversation and really made me very, very happy. So that's just a background in terms of my stuff. Also, so I'm also a drawer person, a comic book person. I should start doing some drawings right now, but hard to draw and talk. But I'll draw a bit in a minute. But for me, don't really tell any adults this, but drawing actually ended up as a way of surviving meetings. I don't know if you've ever been to a meeting before where people sit around and talk. They're dreadful. But if you draw during a meeting, it's much better. So I've drew a lot at the museum because you have a lot of meetings at a museum. And so I found that drawing was a way of listening. And then with my comics making stuff, I've found that comics is a way of thinking. A drawing, you know, can be a way of thinking and a way of realising what you think. So you draw something and then you get the idea. Yeah, so anyway, that's a background for me. And if I come to your school, we'd be doing drawing, I reckon, and some comics, that sort of thing, finding solutions to this crisis that we're about to discuss, we're about to present to you. That's sort of my bag, I guess. Okay, so that's me, and now we're going to introduce. I'm going to introduce you to this. Well, actually, they're going to introduce themselves to you. Kaya Wilson, who is a tsunami specialist.
Yeah, that's right. Tsunami scientist. It's Dr. Kaya to you, Bernard.
A doctor in Canberra, in fact. The nation's capital?
Yes, yeah, Ngunnawal country. Yeah, I'm here. I work with the government on massive disasters. So trying to protect us from things like tsunamis, but also cyclones and earthquakes, and doing what we can so that we can prepare the best that we can so that we're okay in that sort of event. I'm also a writer. I love the arts. You know, I'm really excited to bring out your creativity at this time in the world. Like every time we need everybody's ideas. No idea is bad. I want to hear what you have to say and all the things that we can do to prepare for the more disasters that are going to happen. Because with climate change, that's what the science is saying, is that disasters are going to be more frequent and then be more impactful. So we need to be prepared. And here I am. I'm ready to work with you. I'm excited.
And you're you're a doctor of some sort of science, of like earthquake science or something. What?
Doctor of tsunamis. Yeah, that was my specialty. I've done other ocean stuff. I spent 10 years doing other things. I've spent about 3 years at sea on boats, sailing around the world, mapping the ocean floor. Done lots of research, but I sort of just found myself heading towards the drama. The big disasters, but also the places where you can make the most change, right? So if you can prepare society for a massive disaster and it goes well, then you've made a huge difference.
Absolutely. Okay, great person to have on stage as a floating head, but really kind of we're feeling you here. That's really great. Okay, and a final member of this team of people on stage, Tillie Boleyn. Are you a doctor, Tillie?
Oh, no, but you could still call me Dr. Tillie so that I feel like I'm part of the game. I did an honours,
Yeah?
which is like a little research project that you run at uni. And if anyone wants me to talk about the microevolution of Cryptococcus neoformans, variety neoformans, and its response to the antifungal agent amphotericin B, that was legit the title of my thesis.
wow.
What a ridiculous thing.
Are they little creatures?
Yeah.
Little creatures.
Oh, yeah. So I am basically a massive nerd who is curious about the world and everything in it. So science was my passion right at the beginning, and I studied microbiology.
Yep.
And did a mini research thesis in honours on that.
On many things.
On many things.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was always fascinated with microbiology and sciences in general, but I developed quite a love-hate relationship with lab work, which is quite a big thing in science. And so I figured out that I was actually a better science gossip than I am a scientist. So I talk about other people's science really well. And I did that on the ABC for many years, on the radio across Australia. I did it on television shows. And I love that part of connecting incredible work that people do for other people to enjoy and learn about. Then I got into museums. So like you, I worked at the Powerhouse Museum in Sydney and did science, health and medicine object collection. And so that's where you're thinking about who we are as a people and what ideas are important and what inventions or discoveries are important, and collecting things to hold and then be able to tell those stories later on. But actually, the connection of human beings and ideas and coming up with creative solutions to things is more fascinating to me. So I moved from a more traditional museum into the place where I am now, which is called Science Gallery.
Science gallery?
Yeah.
Like art gallery, but science.
Absolutely. So Science Gallery, we are part of an international network that started in Trinity College at Dublin about 12 years ago. But now we're all over the world at 8 spots and growing. And here in Melbourne, we are embedded within the University of Melbourne. And we really are about pulling up the barriers in between disciplines, and looking at ways that we can bring different knowledges into a conversation. So that could be science, engineering, tsunami scientists, creative writers and drawers. And this is, of course, in no way a new thing. First Nations peoples have been working without barriers in between disciplines for thousands of years. But in Western education systems, there have been, in the last few decades, those sort of divides that if you're interested in science, then you're this sort of person. And as you said before, scientists, engineers are incredibly curious and creative and problem solvers. And so I am really looking forward to today and how we are going to bring all these creative solutions and minds together to solve the greatest problem of our time.
Indeed. Okay, so that's us.
That's us.
Great. Okay, so let us begin our fictional crisis scenario. Attentive? We're alert but not alarmed, yeah? Okay, good. So it's 40 years in the future, 2062. And we are going to be, I'm the same age that I'm not like 40 years older than I am now. I'm my age, right? And you're your age, and Tillie, you're your age, okay? You're whatever you are now. Okay, we're all the same age, time travel. And we are going to go to a little coastal town on the New South Wales southern coast, maybe north of Malakuta, that sort of thing. And so I'm going to draw a bit of a picture of this little town. So it's got this. So there's all the water coming in, and they've got a lovely surf beach, which is right here. And let's go for this colour. And right in here, this is where the township is. So there's a beautiful little building. I might do the buildings in black so we can really see them. There we go. Buildings along the waterfront there, and there's lots of boats because it's a fishing. Well, it's been a fishing village for 200 years, but it's been a fishing place, location, country for tens of thousands of years. People have been getting abalone there, and lovely flatheads and all that sort of fish. Lovely. Okay, so, and we live there. You live there, I live there, Tillie, you live there, Kai. We're all sort of either, living there or visitors. I'll put some more housing over here because in the 40 years since 2022, even though the climate's getting crazier and crazier, people are still, as they are now, loving living by the coast. Loving, here, let's put some buildings here, right along the top of the sort of the coastline there, because they want a view of the ocean, of course. So there's sort of, with Little Wheeler, which is the name of this town, Little Wheeler, there's sort of flats going around the river, and then it goes up to a sort of an escarpment up there. And people have started building up on the escarpment as well. There's a really good falafel shop up there, top of the, there's a gym up the top of the hill. So it's sort of a little wheeler. Even a little wheeler is starting to be built up there on the escarpment because you still get a good view from it there. Yeah. So, but it has to be said that over this 40 years, extreme weather events are getting more and more extreme. Summers are getting hotter. More massive storms keep coming in. So one of the things that's happened is very controversial, but one of the things that has happened at Little Wheeler and other places up and down the East Coast is that enormous wall has got built in front of the heads there. Now, I know to me it sounds a bit silly, but Kaya, this is a real suggestion at the moment, isn't it? People are saying we should be building walls to protect places from big waves and stuff. Is that a real thing?
Yeah, so there's most people are concerned about their properties, so there's lots of big walls being built on the beach to protect properties that are right on the coastline. And what tends to happen is that the beach then gets worn away, and so you just end up with a pile of rocks. And then you've drawn a breakwater, that's another option that can protect harbours from storm waves and things. For sea level rise, it's coming, and it's sort of only really a matter of time, and these are kind of stopgaps, really.
Do you reckon 40 years, could we say, no, the sea level has go up in that? Could we sort of say, is it gone up half a metre? Would that be crazy? Or
we're talking millimetres a year, but by that time it's going to start to add up. And it's not just the general sea level, it's the storm sea level as well. So in the next 40 years, those sorts of storm events are going to definitely be getting onto properties that now stay dry. So yeah, those properties are very much at risk.
Great. All right, let's progress with the scenario. It's Friday, the 10th of February. That is to say, you've had your usual summer of extreme heat, and then heavy storms, like we've said. Every day from the Bureau of Meteorology, there's warnings: extreme weather warning, brown rot, pink flea. I don't even know what pink flea is, but I'm sure it will come along. But the tourists have now gone home for the year, because that happens every year, because it's a coastal town. The tourists have gone home. You're still there because you live in Little Wheeler, and school has started. So you go to school on this particular day, 10th of Feb, and you look at the bowl for your pet, and you think, oh, I'm going to put some ice in that just to keep that a little bit cooler. And you say, as you're leaving home, see you later, Marvel. Stay in the shade today. So you go to school. At recess, you pull out your bag for the food that you've got. You go, oh, Mum, give me another yogurt. The school keeps sending robots home to say, do not send dairy on hot day. Anyway, you eat it. That's actually quite nice, blueberry. But at 10:50 a.m., as you're drinking down that yogurt, an enormous earthquake occurs off the South Island of New Zealand. And at that moment, you don't know it yet. In fact, nobody in Little Wheeler knows it yet, but you're in trouble. But you just don't know that yet. You go back into the classroom because your big worry at that point is, how am I going to convince my teacher that I've read more than one chapter of Jane Eyre? That's your big that's the pressing issue in your mind. But the town is in trouble. So we might pass over to Kaya now. What's going to happen? Can you speculate?
Yeah, so I think I'll explain two things, right? So first thing I'll explain is what's happening to the earth that we live on, and also second thing, what's happening with the emergency response that Australia is going to go into, okay? So first of all, we all live on this globe, we all share the earth. It has this sort of gooey center of magma, and on the outside we've got this crustier sort of shell. You can compare it to a pavlova. You got the gooey bit, the crusty bit, and you got those cracks, right? And so it's not static, it moves. And these plates, these crusty bits are moving, and they bang into each other, they move apart, very slow speeds, but down in the south coast, just south of New Zealand, two of these plates come together and they're pushing against each other. And there's a lot of friction. One plate's going underneath and one plate's on top, and then all it builds up and then it boom. And the plate above lifts up and that moves all the ocean that's above it. So this particular plate boundary is underwater and it pushes the ocean up, which creates a wave or a series of waves. And that's what a tsunami is. And it's not the same type of wave you get at the beach. It's much longer, much bigger, much more powerful, much more dangerous. So that's what's happened. It started moving away from that rupture where the earthquake was, and it's just about to hit New Zealand, right? So we know that it's going to take another 2 and a bit hours to make it to where you are in Little Wheeler. And don't forget, this isn't just affecting Little Wheeler. This is going to affect the whole of the East Coast, okay? So what's happening with the emergency services is that Australia has this National Earthquake Alert Centre, and they've detected the earthquake. They know where it is, how big it is, and they know that it's probably going to make a pretty big tsunami, and we need to get our act together. So whoever's on duty that day probably has a little bit of a moment and then calmly moves into alert mode and sends off this warning. A tsunami warning is sent to the relevant authorities. It goes on all of the media, social media, Twitter, radio, everything. And it also importantly goes to your state emergency services. It goes to the surf lifesavers. It goes to everybody who needs to mobilize to try and get people safe, right? So all those community volunteers in the SES are getting their phone calls. What they're trying to do, they're going to work with the surf lifesavers, going to work with the police. Everybody in emergency services is going to work to get all the people who are on the coast a kilometre away from the coastline or 10 metres up, right? So in Little Wheeler, they're going to try and get you up the hill. You've got a designated evacuation centre because your mayor was really prepared. Nice one, Mayor. You know where you're going. Your teachers have got everything organised. They know what's at stake and they know they're going to get everybody up the hill into the gym, okay? So you also might receive a text message, but don't forget the whole of the East Coast is in danger. So the emergency services are prioritising where they think is most at risk. And you're just a little town. Maybe you didn't get the text message, maybe you did. But everyone knows where to go, and that's where you are. You're with your friends, you've grabbed your lunchbox, your bottle of water, you've got your half-eaten thing of yogurt. By now it's curdled, not so good anymore. You find yourself at the gym, everybody's there, your teacher's taking roll call, and this is where we are now. And we're all a bit on edge, you know, like it's still a beautiful day. It's still a hot summer's day. You can't see the tsunami coming, but you know it is. And everyone is starting to prepare. And we're going to do what we can to make sure everybody survives. Don't forget all the boats as well in the harbour. Maybe your dad's out fishing, your sister's with him, and they get a call on the radio to come in immediately, or for the large ships to go further out to sea. So those larger vessels, they go way out to sea where they're safer because there's just a little wave on the ocean, but when it comes onto shore, it grows and it grows and it gets much bigger. So we're preparing for 2 days or so of waves. There's a whole sequence. You don't know when the biggest one's going to be. So you need to stay up in the evacuation centre and not come down.
So
Are we ready?
For 2 days, we need to be prepared to stay out of the way.
Could be 2 days. It could be even longer. There might be aftershocks down on the same boundary, same plate boundary. You might have another large earthquake, or there might just be, more waves still coming. It could be 2 to 3 days.
Wow. Whew. Thanks, Kaya. Okay, so it's a relief. You've made it to the evacuation centre, which is the gym up the hill near the good falafel shop. But it is, as Kaya said, it is chaos. It's loud, it's buzzing, there's people, everybody's talking at once. You can see some of the kids at the primary school, not you, but some of the kids at the primary school have started crying. To be honest, you feel a bit like that yourself. Where's your mum? Will she be here soon? What about the dog? What about Marvel? There aren't any other dogs here, but will Marvel be able to be? There's a lot of questions that are building up inside you. So you look around, you go, oh, there's my people. There's the English teacher. She won't be asking any questions about Jane Eyre now. And she's talking to the vice principal and Jan from the office. So they're all talking. So you think, oh, I've got to just check in with them and see, mum's not responding on the phone. You go over and they do this. They're saying, stay away. We've got to do big stuff here. We're making decisions. We can't deal with you right now. So you're like, okay, what am I going to do? You look across over at the seats on the other side of the gym and you see Tillie, who runs the local science gallery here in Wheeler, in Little Wheeler. Gets a lot of business over the summer. And Tillie's great. Tillie, remember that time when you went to the science centre but you didn't have any lunch? She gave you, lent you, but gave you a muesli bar, and just kept you going. Remember that? And then everybody really loves that story that she tells about the neon sign in the window of the science gallery here in Little Wheeler is actually lit using the power of urine. It's like a yellow sign. It's very funny. Anyway, we like Tillie. Tillie, this teen comes up to you and they're a bit freaked out. I mean, everybody is, obviously. They're scared. You live in the community too, and you're probably scared as well. So, but they want to talk to you. Could you bring some of the curiosity, the science connection sort of thinking that you do into your chat with them, or what you might be talking to them about, or what you might think that you could come to or speak about? Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. I mean, first of all, who lends a muesli bar?
Well, the fictional Tillie, I tell you.
Fictional Tillie calling back the muesli bar privileges. You can all keep your muesli bars, I promise. What a full-on time to be together in that space. I guess, huddle in, because looking over at all of the other people who are your vice principal and your principal and Kaya and the team, bringing a bit of calm that I know that humans have created all of these issues and then have not acted on them for so long. But actually, we are an incredibly inventive and innovative species. And we are going to come up with excellent solutions in the immediate, in the medium term, and in the long term. And
is that faith? Are you talking about faith?
No, I'm
there,
talking
Tillie?
about creativity,
right,
and the power of bringing together humans with different experiences and different skill sets to tackle a problem and come up with different solutions for different timescales. And we can do that a bit today, but also just to reassure everyone about the fact that there are going to be things that we can have a voice in and have an impact in that will change how we're feeling today, how our immediate group feels, and then the planning for the future of what we want Little Wheeler to be, because now is the time for out-of-the-box thinking. And by that I mean humans, we've been wrestling with this problem of climate change for decades and decades, and we, all of the adults who are doing great planning around there of this emergency and disaster, they haven't come up with the amazing solutions to solve it all yet. So coming at it with different eyes like yours and bringing your voice is incredibly important. I mean, remember Senator Thunberg? 40 years ago, she was just starting her advocacy and her action and her voice by standing up for climate on Fridays. And now she runs the UN Committee of Climate Change Innovation.
She does. And boy, oh boy, those speeches, everybody tunes into those.
So what I'm saying is it's scary, but we can put our heads together and start having an impact of how it feels to be here in this centre together and make sure, you know, like for me, there's 5 big topics that we can tackle together. And that is that we need to start thinking short-term, medium, long-term of energy generation, of drinking water, of food, communication, and of comfort, safety, and mental health, which I put in one sort of sphere together. And all of us can have a serious impact on how those things happen and what we are dreaming for our future or our immediate. So, and that brings us to, you mentioned Urinatron, you mentioned the We-powered sign. And so I thought that for anyone who hasn't visited Little Wheeler's Science Gallery, I'll give you an example. So this actually tackles 2 of those things that we need to address, which is the energy efficiency and the drinking water. So Urinatron was, don't do that face. You are going to love it. Urinatron is this installation that is only possible because of the incredibly different minds of 2 human beings. One's an artist and one's a chemical engineer who both were really interested in rethinking waste. So how is it that we can transform our idea of what human waste is so that we are every day literally flushing an incredibly valuable resource down the toilet. Thank you. Boom, boom. And it's actually got, because of that face, because of that yuck factor, we just throw it away. And so these 2 creatures came together to transform how we feel about we. And they created Urinatron, which, just imagine a room filled with flasks, half of them water, half of them urine. They are connected through electrodes and with the glorious microbial fuel cells that are created just within that they generate electricity. So at Science Gallery, when you come in to the Little Wheeler Science Gallery, if you contribute your you can look at the neon sign lit by it, you can plug your phone in and charge your battery. And then when the has stopped creating the electricity, then we pour it through a filtration system and it creates, or at the other end, comes the cleanest drinking water. So cleaner than what is in our taps, which is already very clean and very safe and very drinkable. And at Science Gallery, we wanted people to be able to drink that, but the regulations and the laws that we have in place haven't caught up with the innovations of science and engineering. And so we actually we weren't even allowed to water the plants with it. We had to pour it down the sink.
Oh, that does seem a bit
extreme.
So
we've shown that we can create energy, that we can create fresh drinking water right here in Little Wheeler, even if we were cut off from the system. We just might have to push a few people through the ick factor to get there. And so it's that sort of out-of-the-box thinking that we can look around us and see who in the town we need to pull into the conversation, who hasn't been at the table before. Remembering, of course, that here in Little Wheeler and across this nation, First Nations peoples have been living and thriving in extreme weather conditions, not this extreme, but thriving on this country, and that their incredible knowledges in science, in arts, in across all of the disciplines should be pulled into our discussions as well. But you know, we've got things that we can do now and in the future.
And the we power. That's an artist and a scientist working together on that project.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
So like a sculptural artist and a chemical engineer, neither of whom had thought that they would collaborate together on a project, but their different perspectives coming to the one question, the one challenge of how can we do this better? How can we transform how people think about this thing? Created Urinatron, which could not have been possible without their incredible skill set coming over together.
Okay. Wow. Amazing. Well, I can see why you would be welcoming whoever wants to come to talk to you at this crisis centre with, spilled people over and hearing terrible noises. I'm sure we would be. Would that be right, Kai? We're hearing noises when we're up at the so I don't know, when we're a couple of clicks away from the main town, but I imagine it'd be or in the ear quite full on. The sound.
Yeah, the sound is what people talk about. People have experienced tsunamis describe it as a roar. As this roar coming, and it sort of just gets closer and closer, and then when it starts to smash buildings, you can watch some of these videos online. You hear the sounds of destruction. We'll be up on the hill, so we could probably look down and see what's going on. But I suspect your teachers are going to try and keep you all in one place. This is going to go on for a little while. We don't want to lose anybody, so we're trying to keep everybody safe. But, everybody's got a bladder. We've all got a resource there.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
And I think, those are the things we're going to start worrying about. You've got to get pretty practical at this point. You can see things are being destroyed. We need to worry about water security. We need to worry about food security, medicines. All the supply chains are going to be completely disrupted, roads destroyed, the bridge over that little creek gone. You're not going to be crossing over. We're worried about power, electricity. We're worried about communications. Has the phone gone down? Has the internet gone down? And this is the whole of the East Coast. We don't know when help is going to arrive, if it is going to arrive. Are we a priority? Probably not. We're only a small town. So these are all the questions we need to address.
Yeah. Okay. To return to the gym, you're getting pretty worried there. It's I don't know. Maybe it's the night of the night of the first day. Lots of awful noises, and you look up and to your delight and ever overwhelming joy, there's Mum. There's your dad, the fisher person, there's your sister, and there's Marvel the dog. You run and grasp Marvel. Say, Marvel, Marvel, it's so good to see you. And your family say, well, what are we? Chopped fish bait? And so you all give a big hug. So you're back together, which is great. But as Kaya has said, it is this stressful 2 days. You're waiting for people to turn up. And finally, on day 3 of being up in that gym, it's declared safe enough to go back down to the bay, and what we see is devastating. I'm imagining that there are boats up on roofs of buildings, Kaya, the sort of pictures that one saw after the tsunami in Japan particularly, and the Indonesian.
It's going to be pretty serious. I mean, Japan was about as big as these things get. Might not be quite that crazy, but they're still going to have the boats up on land. You'll be able to see where the tsunami got to, because everything it went through is destroyed. All the trees will be knocked down, buildings will be blown open if they're still standing. There'll be debris everywhere, so everything will just get washed down through and just be down. And that's pretty dangerous on its own. Every dip will be filled with salt water. The water is probably going to be contaminated. It's probably gone through a few septic systems on the way. It's gone through potentially some sort of industrial zone. It's not going to be pretty. It's probably going to smell pretty bad. It's going to be quite toxic, quite dangerous. It might have got into the town's water supply. These are the things you need to factor in and be really wary of before anyone does anything, before anyone really, puts themselves in danger.
Yes. All right. So maybe if we can just have a bit of discussion between the three of us, just for the next 5 minutes or so, to work out, just to get that paint some more detail of that picture together, because that's the picture that we'll be leaving you guys, you people, you folks, with, and that's what we'll be bringing to our next session, the workshops. So that's what we'll be trying to dream into, think into, draw into, making responses to this situation. Tillie.
I've got an answer. I've got a question for Kaya. Would the whole town be gone, or like what generally happens? Is it consistent?
So up on the hill is probably going to be fine, right? Closest to the coastline, that's the bits that are going to get smashed. Maybe it didn't go all the way, but it went quite a way. It's definitely going to go up that little creek. You know, those creeks really facilitate tsunami movement. That would have gone up and down and reached very high current speeds, so it would have smashed whatever was in the way there. So anything, I don't know particularly, yep.
Sorry, you were saying up and down there, so it is a bit like waves where it goes up and then retreats and then pushes in again. Is that the sort of picture of a...
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to kind of imagine it is the kind of slow up and down movement. So say like over 10 minutes, it might go up and down, right? Almost like a tide rather than an ocean wave, but you're going to have it going up the creek and down the creek. Might be 10 minutes, might be 2, might be 3, might be 5. It's just going to be inconsistent, really unpredictable, very fast, very powerful. And sometimes people describe that first big wave as kind of like the whole of the ocean is coming on land. So it's not like a wave you want to surf. People talk about going on the beach. It's not a good idea. It's just like you're going to be hit by a wall.
And what do you reckon that wall that we drew in the picture outside the heads of Little Wheeler, is that smooshed, or does the water just go around it, or is it a bit of both, or?
Probably going to go around, it's going to go over the top. That wasn't really built for tsunamis. That's not going to do a whole lot in this situation. It might have like protected some of the entrance a bit, but it's not going to stop the water going up. And I don't think it would have been tall enough, to be honest.
Yeah.
So all the low-lying houses and roads, they're all gone. But as we get further back from the waterfront, there might still be half the town left.
Bits and pieces.
Yeah, I think in this situation, we've got about 50%. So half the people have lost their home, half the people haven't.
Certainly, my little comic book shop, Atlantis Comics, on the waterfront, that's probably gone, isn't it? That's gone. Atlantis Comics is gone.
Sorry.
I had a first issue of Action Comics from 1938 there. That was my retirement. It's gone. Damn. Okay. But you're saying that it'll be, I mean, one imagines it's very dangerous down there, even after the tsunami is like all the broken stuff and, you know, just glass and twisted metal and, you know, I suppose we as citizens are prevented from going back down to our house.
Who's still around? Like what, at that point where people are coming from the evacuation centre back into the town, will there be other representatives of humans cleaning stuff up already in a coordinated response, or does that fall on us as the townspeople?
Well, it's our town, right? I mean, you've probably still got the community members of the state emergency services trying to coordinate everybody, that got everyone back, but they're getting tired too. They've been on shift for a long time. Your surf lifesavers, some of you are probably surf lifesavers. You might be called up to help. So I think like at this stage, we're quite isolated and we're going to have to make these decisions as a team. We're going to have to make these decisions so that everybody is listened to, so that we're all safe. I think this is going to take some community and so some coordination.
Yeah. So there's, for our workshops that we're going to do, there's a sort of a local period, a little time period, maybe a couple of weeks where we're really on our own resource or can only kind of rely on our own resources, what we've got there. And then, you know, eventually we can imagine a longer term. So maybe in the workshops we can do stuff about like today or this week or food or stuff like that. And then maybe if we've got time, we can imagine a bit further forward into rebuilding sort of strategies or approaches.
Yeah, or new ways. So if we were looking to rebuild that half of the town, what new ways of either building our homes or the way that we are going to be harvesting energy or food?
Yeah, and I suppose...
Reimagining.
Yeah, exactly. And factoring in, like now we live in COVID normal or whatever, we have to think about living in tsunami, like, okay, there's going to be another one in 20 years. Is that...
Kaya, is that how we need to start thinking in our lives? Like, tsunami normal?
Tsunamis aren't going to get more frequent because of climate change, but climate change is going to cause sea level rise. And that's going to make tsunamis worse, right? So we describe climate change as a threat multiplier. So tsunamis are going to happen. They're just going to tsunami, right? We don't know. They're hard to predict. We roughly know the frequency, but they could come at any time, right? But as the seas rise, it's just going to be worse. Storm is going to be worse. Lots of things are going to be worse. And, we just half the times be wiped out. Do we want to rebuild right on the coastline? I don't think so. We've got an opportunity here to relocate or to just be a bit smarter about what's going to happen in the future.
And about the value that one places on a sea view, basically, as well.
We've all got a sea view at this point.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, right in your face. Okay, do you reckon we've covered? Have we got to the point? Does anybody need to say anything more before we turn up in schools armed with our arms?
Armed with our arms, and so
Brains.
much possibility.
So much possibility.
Yeah. Exactly. So much
You probably
possibility.
ham the isolation up a bit. You're not going to have any ships coming in. There's not going to be any vehicles on the roads. Do we have an airstrip? Not really. Helicopters are all spoken for, rescuing people. We're isolated.
So that cut-off thing, we can really bear that in mind as a major theme, but certainly in the short term for the thinking about what we're going to do.
And we don't know how long it's going to last. That's what, the COVID uncertainty. Now we're in post-tsunami uncertainty. The phones aren't working. Radio's not working. We don't know what's happening.
The glorious thing, though, is about the population of Little Wheeler.
Yes.
And all of the imagination that we can do about the human beings that are within it. So whether we want to have... we've got a tsunami expert right here in the town.
Yep,
and emergency planning.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yep.
And thinking about the other types of human beings with intense knowledges that we'll be able to bring in to those discussions in the workshops, whether they're microbiologists, so people who are experts in studying microorganisms, they're going to help us in all manner of things, maybe about the water treatment. There's lots of humans in Little Wheeler that we'll be able to bring in to our service to be thinking about what to do.
Yeah. And
everybody's essential.
Yeah.
Everybody's essential.
And that there are going to be great ideas coming from all directions, and how it is that we're going to weave those together to come up with a better Little Wheeler.
Better Little Wheeler for the future. Brilliant. We look over Little Wheeler. It's devastated. We're committed to building the future, but we're not out of the woods. There is, at least, as we've been talking about, time, at least 2 weeks before we've got support from the government, medical supplies, water purification kits. We are all feeling overwhelmed, but we are people, as Tillie keeps saying, with enormous imaginations and goodwill. So it's hard to imagine a future where things might be repaired, but that is what we are going to do in session 2. So Kaya's over there talking to tsunami nerds. Tillie's working with a gang of teens to build a new interactive exhibition. Me, I'm with a gang of teen visual reporters, and we're getting people's stories, and we're writing them down and drawing them down. So we're going to take all those things in our workshops and then bring them back here for the big show, the big showcase for the third session.
Where we'll have solved all the
Oh,
problems, right?
phew. I'm looking forward to that. So let's say thanks very much. Dr. Kyle Wilson, thank you so much for tuning in from Canberra today to talk to us and give us your wealth of knowledge and goodwill.
It's my absolute pleasure. I love Little Wheeler. I want us to do well. I want this community to thrive. And I'm excited to work with you all.
And Tillie Boleyn, thank you so much for your strong belief in people and the way that they come together and make new possibilities. That's very stirring and wonderful. So thank you for your time as well.
Thanks for having me.
Great. All right. Well, we'll see you at the workshops. Thanks very much. See ya.